Good morning. What I'm about to speak into might not be so comfortable. But I've been sitting in this for a while. I would say years even. And one thing that I really wanted to connect and clarify in so many ways, and this is probably going to be, I don't know, I'm not going to project anything out there of what it might be. But I've been observing systems, I've been studying trauma and the effect of it for my work, for myself, and understanding or learning dynamics and seeing what comes into play in terms of the blueprints that we all come here with or grow up with. And specifically, I'm just going to speak from a personal perspective of something I've been sitting with, which is the concept of radical responsibility, power. One thing that I've spent a long time doing is accepting the belief of taking 100% radical responsibility for everything in my life. And I felt off about it for some time, similarly to quite a few other things, but I felt off about this concept for some time because it felt like there was a puzzle piece missing. It didn't just slot right in, it felt slightly just... There was a nuance, and nuance is something that I think we're lacking nowadays. And the ability to hold nuance or multiple truths. Taking radical responsibility is a very empowering thought. And within certain concepts and within certain systems, especially the ones that we're witnessing collapsing at the moment, also can be a very dangerous and slippery slope into self-blame or self-hatred and or a higher level of stress, and honestly a coping mechanism or a concept of control, meaning if you are in charge of your reality 100%, and if you are in charge of your own vibration 100%, then everything that is happening around you is happening, it's not happening to you, it's happening for you, right? And it is a product of your internal state. This can become a very, very dangerous form of enabling when it comes to those who have grown up already taking responsibility for things that aren't theirs. For example, the emotionality of their parents or caregivers, whoever they grew up with. And so I've been leaning a lot more into the idea and the more grounded, in my opinion, and experience, the more grounded reality of that we are absolutely responsible for ourselves, but we are not responsible for the behaviors and choices of anyone around us. The dynamics in which we connect with is a dance. There are two people, two humans, two souls, so to speak. And for this concept, we're going to have to step out of the non-dualistic mentality just a little bit, because we're in the non-dualistic mentality and reality in this moment. Taking radical responsibility also enables a lot of under-responsibility for whoever you are in communion with, which, to be frank, perpetuates, I'm just gonna use this as an example, the mother wound of holding and absorbing and enabling under responsibility from someone, which then perpetuates your own dynamic of taking responsibility for everyone and everything. Now, I'm of the personal belief that I am 100% responsible for 50% of any dynamic that I'm in. And a way that I like to speak into this is You can get into a car, you can get all of your driving licenses done and all of your lessons and know all of the rules and know all of the signs and put your seatbelt on and check all the mirrors and drive the speed limit, follow all the rules, and yet there's potentially going to be someone who is a drunk driver that just smashes into your car running through a red light. Are you responsible for that? Now, there are a few trains of thoughts here where it's like, well, yeah, and regardless of that, it was meant to happen. This pisses me off. It pisses me off because it almost completely detaches from reality, and it just further perpetuates the self-blame, because then it's like, well, maybe if I listen to, not going a different route, or maybe if I listen to, maybe leaving at a different time, then maybe it wouldn't have happened. It completely removes and dissolves the actuality and the reality of this person's choices in that dynamic. And so you're absorbing more and more and more. So when it comes to power, when it comes to self-power or self-empowerment, ironically, this fractures your sense of self-empowerment in a certain degree, because we're not here to do everything alone. We cannot, as human beings whose sole primary need is human connection, we cannot do everything alone. Hyper-independence is a coping mechanism. And so if you are hyper-individuated, hyper-independent, you are enabling a broken system, and you're also not allowing the idea that a system is broken and unsupportive to even be the reality of the situation. So that's in so many ways an avoidance of the truth of what's in front of us. Teal Swan mentioned this as well, where it's like, what would you say to the, for example, Holocaust, I was going to say survivors, but if you have people who were in the Holocaust waiting to be shot in front of the wall, and you walked up to them and said, well, everything that is happening to you is because of the choices that you made yesterday, and everything that's going to happen to you tomorrow is made from the choices that you've made today. Now, this is where I want to argue, because you can make all the right choices and still be hit by the person who's drunk driving. To absolve anyone else of responsibility is enabling. It perpetuates underperformance, under responsibility. And so this is something that I've just been sitting with for a long time, and to be frank, just sitting in a lot of self-blame, considering, everyone's going through a massive life transition at the moment, and when personally I spend all of this time going, well, what is it that I've done? What is it that I've done? What is it that I've done? I've noticed that this just perpetuates the same fucking environment and pattern that I grew up with, which is everything is my fault, everything is my responsibility, even though as a child that was not my responsibility. And so if I was to integrate that now, it would be to realize that I'm not choosing this. I may be honest within myself and honest in my communication, but if someone is actively choosing to lie, that's not my responsibility. That's not mine to hold. The impact of that is mine to work through. And that in and of itself cannot be done solely alone. So essentially, there's a very slight nuance, or there's a very dangerous nuance, or like slippery slope here, where it's like it's fucking razor thin, where if I don't hold 100% responsibility for everything that's happening to me, then I'm just in victim mentality. And can you see how compiling in terms of shit that might be? I'm 100% responsible for 50% of this dynamic. That's a much more accurate nuance, I would say. But if we are avoiding looking at the fact that the very systems and environments around us are not taking responsibility, then it's dissociative. It's dissociative. And it just perpetuates things, and it honestly just it hyper individuates us into the state of taking. If I'm responsible for myself, then I will have to do whatever it is that I can do to get to where I want to be, as opposed to leaning into the way of we are all responsible for each other. When you look at love, or what love is, when you love someone, you are taking them as part of yourself and treating them as part of yourself, and not in a fucking codependent way, but you are saying, I will do and speak and act in the ways that I recognize is for your best interest. Not over your own, but with. If we zoom out and look at it from the concept of we're all one, then we also get to understand that to be nice is to absorb and enable. To be kind is to speak and to allow certain consequences for someone else's actions to be held by them. Otherwise, you're just enabling and putting more and more on your back, which ultimately leads to burnout, ultimately leads to a breakdown. Which is great because then you have a breakthrough, but at the same time, it can be highly damaging. Highly, highly damaging, not just on a physical level, but a psychological, emotional level. It weakens. It weakens. Which is ironic because you're taking your power back, right? This is the thing about power. Taking 100% radical responsibility for everything? It leads to overwhelm and shutdown. It leads to a space of, I don't know if I can do this anymore. And so when you're in that space, who wins? Who wins? You're too tired. You're too exhausted. And in so many ways, you've completely disconnected from the reality that we're in a space of co-creation and a constant dance. And if you're stuck only in this idea of I am a creator of myself, first of all, step the fuck down and realize that you are not the creator of the entire universe. You are a being and receptive part of it. You create your reality, yes, through your choices. And we are living in a world where there's a lot of us around making all these choices, all responsible for ourselves. And when you are in the mentality of community, we are responsible for caring for another. Would you say you're 100% radically responsible for yourself to someone who is differently abled? Oh, well, you just need to change your mindset. Just meditate a little bit more. What if there's an inability to? Do we just leave them at the edge of the village? Or do we partake in the care for them because they are a part of the community? It also perpetuates the idea of just like, kind of leaving our elders. Leave them in, homes and whatever it is. Like, that's not our responsibility. No, it's about, can you take care of those who are unable to take care of themselves? Now that's, again, a very nuanced situation, because if you are caring for others more so than yourself, that's where you gotta, pull back a little bit. Recognize that you can't do everything by yourself. Essentially, what I've recognized, especially within myself, is that this whole dance of understanding power has led down a very, very slippery slope of just continuous self-blame, and then you end up just sitting there going, well, what the fuck do I do now? You're in so many ways paralyzed with the decisions, because if you are responsible for absolutely 100% of everything that's happening to you and around you, then if you make the wrong decisions, something bad happens, or you get hurt, or there's a catastrophe in some way, then that's your fault. And it's not about fault. It's cause and effect. It's karma. It's consequence of certain actions, choices, and beliefs. And so if you're taking 100% responsibility for everything that is happening to you, then that's another form of coping and hyper-individuation and hyper-independence. It is a disconnecting factor. We are here to connect with one another and to care for one another and to take others as a part of our own hearts. Yes, and if you take 100% responsibility for absolutely everything that is happening to you, yeah, it gives you almost a false sense of control and power, but it also is leaning into the fact that you are in control of someone else's emotions and actions and beliefs and choices. Which, funnily enough, isn't that the definition of codependency? Isn't that the definition of overstepping on your own boundaries? 100% of your responsibility. You have 100% responsibility in 50% of the dynamics that you have. The rest is enabling. Again, you can follow all of the rules on the road. You can check your seatbelt. You can follow the speed limit. And there's still a probability of someone running a red light who's been drunk driving, smashing and totaling your car and breaking your spine. So, what do you do then? It's kind of like, well, why the fuck do these, laws exist where it's like, a murderer comes in and kills a child. Ooh. Oh, then maybe that just needed to happen. No, the person who's made the decision to murder that child is 100% responsible for that and needs to face the consequences of that. They are responsible for their choices. We cannot keep looking at everyone around us through the lens of only the inner child being wounded, because we are all adults walking around with these inner wounds and these inner child, So do we treat each other as the inner children, or do we treat each other as the adults with the possibility, the actuality of being able to integrate and mature those inner children? That's the responsible aspect. That's what you are responsible for. You get to ask yourself, what did I learn from this? But when it comes down to this stuff, it almost becomes dismissive of the impact. And impact is so overlooked. If you want to take your power back, sure, great, cool, set the boundaries, do this, do that. But then what happens if the boundaries continuously get pushed? What happens if someone is consciously lying to you for the benefit of their life, erasing your own? What are you responsible for there? You're responsible for removing yourself out of that situation as soon as possible, yes. And you did not ask to be lied to. You did not ask. That is what you're not responsible for. And so, you can say that I'm in victim mentality all you want, but what I see is that we are in a very, very slippery space, especially in the spiritual field, where rather than recognizing harm and collectively coming together to reduce that level of harm by holding the people who are responsible for their actions responsible, It perpetuates enabling behavior of dysfunctional dynamics and in some cases abuse. Which, in my mind, I see it so similarly to a guy making a over-sexualized joke about a woman and anyone around him is just like, oh yeah, just laugh it off. As opposed to calling that person out, saying, yeah, that's not fucking cool. That's actually disgusting behavior. And you maybe need to sit with some of the shit and recognize that what you're doing and saying is incorrect. And without tangenting off. But if we're just like, oh, well, that's their path, then that perpetuates that pattern. Breaking a cycle is not only solely for yourself, it is also being able to call out that pattern within others. And it's up to them whether or not they listen. That's their responsibility. But to say nothing is an enabling aspect. To say that's their path is in so many ways you are permitting that to continue. No, it's not your responsibility to hold that for them or to work through it for them, but it is your responsibility to call out shitty behavior. If you want to take it, if you want to be someone who's able to notice these things, because the whole point of being able to integrate these aspects of yourself is so that you recognize it. That's what you learn from it. And so if you pull away and individuate to the point of hyper-independence and complete dissociation to the fact that we are in a co-created reality where everyone is dancing with one another, you're perpetuating this single-minded taking. Oh, I'm really trying to avoid the word. You're perpetuating this idea of everything is mine, which isn't a healthy thing. I don't think or believe that allowing someone to face the consequences of their own choices or actions is being in a victim mentality. I don't think that discussing the impact of someone else's behavior or choices on how it has affected you is victim mentality. I think it's actually much healthier to recognize that the actions and choices of other people absolutely can have an impact on you. I mean, if you walk down the street one day and someone comes up to you and says, you look incredible. Wow, I had to just come up here and say, like, I just saw you walking down the street. I love this coat. Like, you look like you're just fucking owning it. It has an impact on you. You are affected by it. You do have an effect by it. Now, of course, there's another layer here, especially from the Buddhist mentality of like, whatever it is, good or bad, you remain in neutrality. That's all well and good, but also if you are only in the space of neutrality, then nothing really happens. We need contrast for creation to keep moving. We need the negative and the positive to bounce one and off another for evolution to take place. So if we're all in neutrality, it's stagnant. What happens with the heart? Up and down, up and down, up and down. But if it's neutral all the time, you're flatlined. There's no life. There's no creation. That's the whole fucking point. So if anything, it's an invitation right now to just sit the fuck back a little bit and allow yourself to take responsibility for your own choices whilst recognizing very, very clearly what isn't yours, what isn't your responsibility. Thank you.